tap the lens of your camera?
Yeah. Remember, we're talking about mistakes on this episode.
Oh yes, that's right. I've already forgotten what we are talking about.
Oh.
Welcome back, everyone. We thought we would film one bonus video for you about mistakes we've made in terms of gear that we've brought, gear that we've purchased, stuff that hasn't gone well, just things so you can avoid making those same mistakes. Patrick, do you want to get started? Or?
Well, the first thing I'd like to cover is something we covered in our boot video, is this bad boy. Oh, right here. This is my 3-season mountaineering boot, and I purchased this on a whim right before I climbed Mount Baldy as my first trip, and I wish I hadn't bought it. I wish I had just, not purchased this boot and gone straight for the Phantom Tech, which is a much warmer boot. Sure, my feet might sweat a little bit more on warmer days, and that might be a little uncomfortable, but that would have saved me, I think, about $400, because even though I got these on sale, they still cost me an arm and a leg. So if I were to buy a pair of mountaineering boots, I'd rather just do it the first time and get a pair of nice warm Phantom Techs, or the equivalent from La Sportiva, which I believe is the G3 Evo.
I'm now speaking to you from inside of my new Expedition sleeping bag because one of the biggest mistakes I have made is with my sleeping system. So when you're sleeping on snow, you get a lot of energy sucked out of you from the snow. So it's really important to have a very warm pad underneath you. And I kind of discounted that. I was like, oh, I'll just put more layers on. If I'm cold, I'm cold. Your sleep, and I cannot stress this enough, we talked about this in the previous video already, I cannot stress this enough how important the quality of your sleep is and how important it is to be warm when you sleep. If you can't sleep, you just won't get to summit at all. If you can't sleep or rest, you just won't get to summit. Super important. I had for a long time a cheap $30 sleeping pad because it packed down fairly small and it was $30. The R value is somewhere below 1. It didn't hold its air through the night very well. I even tried to modify it with a Mylar sheet to make it warmer, and that made it a little bit warmer, but I still got super cold. This last time on Rainier, we actually ended up leaving camp about 3 or 4 hours before we planned to originally, because both of us had sort of gotten cold. I'd gotten colder than Patrick had, but we both started to get cold from our sleeping systems, and it really set the tone for the day. It really did set the tone for the day, and that was not good. So your sleeping system, you got to make sure it's really warm. This is overkill, what I'm sitting in right now. This is a -20 bag, but a 0-degree bag is a pretty good idea for Rainier if you're just going to buy one sleeping bag. If you have a 20-degree bag, be prepared to potentially have to bring a liner with you. I think it's a really good idea to have. It's not something you want to mess around with being cold. Then for the sleeping pad, you should try to get a sleeping pad that has an R value of 4 or better. We both have the Thermarest X-Therm now. Absolutely love that sleeping pad. It's super warm. It's got an R value of 7 point something. Super, super warm. Very important to take care of your sleeping situation.
Moving on, this is not a mistake that I made, but rather a mistake that Jake made, and that's this bad boy right here. This is a hybrid boot. So this is your regular alpine boot, like we mentioned in the boot video. And while it's not necessarily a mistake, but if you're planning on mountaineering in a boot, I would highly recommend going with the touring style boot instead, because these things are clunky and weigh a lot, and it's kind of hard to pick up your feet over and over and over again when you got this big clunker on your foot. So, if you're gonna buy a pair of, dedicated touring boots, just go for your nice ultralight instead of, if you already have an alpine boot, don't get a hybrid boot as your touring boot.
Yeah, and then building off of that, another sort of mistake that I made was I took a sort of fairly heavy pair of alpine skis and Salomon shifts up Shasta, and enough fitness and whatever, you'll get up there, you'll get down, but it kind of detracts from the fun quite a bit. And I also didn't have ski crampons, so that actually ended up in a rescue situation where Patrick and Kenneth had to build a snow anchor and rappel down to where I was because the snow was pretty firm in the morning. Ski crampons, really highly recommend them for Shasta. It's particularly with the time of year we're planning to go, definitely a good thing to have. And then if you want to do it, I really don't recommend bringing hybrid bindings. Like your enjoyment of the day is going to be a lot higher if you just go for the full pin binding.
Moving on, we have eyewear. These bad boys right here. On our required gear list, we say Cat 3 or Cat 4 for your lenses, and that comes from experience. Jake and I both took Cat 2 sunglasses up Mount Shasta when we went this past Memorial Day weekend, and both came home with minor snow blindness. And snow blindness is not something to mess with. You don't want that. So make sure you don't skip out on your eyewear. Cat 3 or 4, it's going to save your eyes, and you won't get a super gnarly headache.
Moving on, you definitely want to have a buff of some kind with you. One of the areas that you kind of miss sun protection the first time you go out is underneath your chin here. Really want to have a buff there because that's a very uncomfortable place to have a sunburn.
It's genuinely terrible. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is another buying mistake of mine, kind of similar to this boot right here. I'm really going to talk about ice axes. The first axe that I bought was the Black Diamond Raven, and this isn't necessarily something that was like a consequential mistake where it's like, oh man, it totally ruined one of my adventures, but I kind of wish I had gone for the Summit Evo. The Petzl Summit Evo is my first axe, instead of getting that Black Diamond Raven as a first axe. The Summit Evo is a little more technical. It's not that straight shaft, and it has a little bit of a bend in it. And personally, I just like it so much more. I could have spent a couple extra bucks when I got my my Raven and just gone with that Summit Evo, and would have had a lot better time.
Another mistake that I made first time I was on Rainier was I took a 3-season tent up there, which first of all, no good. Don't take a 3-season tent up there. Second of all, the stakes I had were just sort of regular ground stakes. You need snow stakes. My tent blew away the first time. It blew to just about the lip of a crevasse before a very kind person who happened to be luckily just staying at camp that day went to the edge of the crevasse, pulled the tent out, and set it back up for me, and basically threw rocks on it and pretty much broke the tent. It wasn't even my tent too, I was borrowing it. Don't, get your snow stakes, protect your tent. You don't want to lose your whole tent, and anything that's inside will disappear as well. And then 4-season tents only on Rainier, and probably Shasta as well. Like, you just don't play around with it. It's just not worth playing around. Another interesting mistake, actually, I almost forgot about, the stove. So canister stoves, like the little pocket rockets and such, they burn through a ton of fuel. While we were on Shasta, we relied on the little canister stoves. We brought a lot more fuel than we thought we needed, and we burned through all of the fuel, melting snow and boiling it, and we got very dehydrated. It was pretty bad news. We were kind of rationing water. That's not a situation you want to find yourself in. The stoves, like an MSR XGK or a Whisper Light that burn like a white gas or some other liquid fuel, those are a much better stove to take up there, just because the fuel is a lot denser when you store it, so you can bring a lot more fuel for a lot less space. The canister stoves work fine, they're just not very space efficient when it comes to bringing all the extra fuel that you need.
Alrighty, well, now that
Don't buy cheesy foods either.
Oh, yeah.
Don't buy cheesy foods.
Okay, well, if Jake doesn't interrupt me again, I believe this concludes Jake's and Patrick's short list of stupid mistakes that hopefully you won't replicate and have to learn from on your own. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. Your train as well.